So I want to begin by telling you a very beautiful story that just came out recently. We all know that Rabbi Leib never passed away just a year and a half ago, and now many, many stories are coming out about him. And this story touched me very much. When he became 90 years old, his doctors told him that he had to have exercise. He had to do exercise or physical therapy or something, because he was just sitting a whole day either learning or just listening to people's problems and giving answers. But his house, if you were ever there, was very, very small. So no, they went into a private room, him and the therapist, and they would go into the other room, lock the door. Nobody was able to come in. And every morning, 8 o'clock, the therapist was there, and they would do the exercises, and Mishumay, nobody was allowed in. One day, the therapist says to Rabbi Leib, he said, "Did you eat yet today?" They said, "No." They said, "What do you mean you didn't eat? Every day we're doing the exercise. You don't eat, it's dangerous. You have to eat." He said, "No, I can't eat now." No way that he could convince him that he should eat before he was doing the exercise, and that's how they did it every day. One day, it's about 2 months in, there was a very, very hard knock on the door. And obviously they realized something was serious. They open up the door, and it's Rabbi Leib's grandson. Now, normally they would not let anybody in, but Rabbi Leib saw his grandson, so he said, "Come in, is everything okay?" He said, "There's a Rosh Hashiva here that has a Pikuach Nefesh Shaila," and he asked that he should come in just for a minute, but he must speak to the Zayda. So, of course, he let him in, and the therapist noticed how Rabbi Leib was giving this person tremendous kavod, and he answered him, and then the fellow left. But right before he left, the therapist, who was there the whole time, noticed that Rabbi Leib gave this Rosh Hashiva a lot of kavod and respect. So he went over to the Rosh Hashiva and said, "Maybe you could do me a favor. I've been trying to get him to eat every morning, and he doesn't eat. So maybe he'll listen to you. Tell him that it's healthy for him, that he should eat before we did the exercise." So he said, "Okay, I'll try. I don't know if he'll listen to me, but I'll try." So he goes over to Rabbi Leib and says, "The therapist says that it's very important that the Rav should eat. Why doesn't the Rav want to eat?" So he said, "I'll tell." He says, every morning between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, there are thousands of children that go to yeshivas and Beis Yaakovs. And on one hand, that gives HaKadosh Baruch Hu a tremendous amount of nachas. But at that same hour, between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, there are 3 times or 4 times as many children in Eretz Yisrael that are going to public school. He says, can you imagine the pain that the Eibishter has between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning when he watches all these children going to schools that have no religion whatsoever? They're not going to learn Torah, they're not going to daven. When the Rebbeinu Shalom is in such pain between 8 and 9 o'clock, I cannot eat. Imagine that. Who would have such a sensitivity? Charlie and I were just talking about the sensitivity of great people. When you have that sensitivity and you see that's what Rabbi Leib was thinking about, it's absolutely incredible. As Rabbi Ilan was mentioning, 9,500 Bukharian children are in public school. Now, if you make a cheshbon about that, it's frightening. And I'll tell you something that happened in Torah Das many, many years ago, long before I got there. There was a Rosh Hashiva, his name was Rav Shlomo Hyman. And Rachmana litzlan, he had no children. And he loved his Talmidim like his own children. One of the Talmidim that he had there was Rav Moshe Samuels. Now, I remember Rav Moshe Samuels was a Rebbe in Torah Das when I got there many years later. And Rav Moshe Samuels once told this story. There was a snowstorm in Williamsburg, and only 4 boys showed up to the class. Normally there were 20. And the Rebbe, these 4 kids thought that the Rebbe will review, he's not going to learn new stuff, he'll tell a story or something. But he was so into it, learning new Gemara, and he got so into it, he got out of breath, he had to stop and take a glass of water. And then one of the boys said to him something that he shouldn't have said, but the boy said it anyway. And he said, "Rebbe, take it easy. There's only 4 of us here today." So Rav Shlomo Hyman looked at this boy and said, "You think I'm only talking to you? I'm talking to you and to your children and to your children's children. I'm talking to you and to your Talmidim and to your Talmidim's Talmidim." And Rav Moshe Samuels was a Rebbe for 36 years in Torah Das. And all those difficult kids who came from South America, from Panama, from Chile, from Cuba, I remember when they first came, that was the first place they went to, Rabbi Moshe Samuels. He had thousands of Talmidim. So that day, Rabbi Shlomo Hyman wasn't talking to 4 kids. He was talking to 4,000 kids. And that's what we have to understand. When we say 9,500, imagine when these 9,500 get married, right? Let's say they each have 2 kids. So that's 19,000. And if each of these 19,000 have 2 kids, that's 38,000. If they have 2 kids, within 4 generations, you have 76,000 kids from these Bukharians that will know nothing about Yiddishkeit. And I don't have to tell you what's going on in America, worse intermarriage than it ever was before. So that's terrible. I remember, I recently had the opportunity to go to Ukraine. I wish we could all go. Rabbi Rubenstein and I have spoken many, many times of going to these places. He and I go to different places and we lead these tours. And we went to Ukraine and we went to Babi Yar. Babi Yar is a place where 36,000 Yid Nebuch were killed within a very, very short time. And I remember 34,000 Jews were killed between the day, September 29 and 30. Now, I prepare extensively before I speak any place, especially if I'm going on a tour. So I knew that somebody had built a memorial, a big menorah, for whatever it symbolizes, Judaism, for whatever. And I was going to speak there and talk about the Kiddush Hashem and the Chilul Hashem and the Mesiras Nefesh of those people. But when I went online to do the research to see what was there at that ravine, they didn't show the rock that was there. When I came there was a rock. And I was so stunned because on the rock was engraved this pasuk. Koil demei ochicha tzoyakim elai min ha'adama. That pasuk, that expression that Hashem said to Cain, Koil demei, the bloods of your brother are screaming to me from the ground. That was the right pasuk. I get the chills even now when I tell it to you. The bloods. So Rashi says, what do you mean the bloods? The blood of your brother. So one shot is because Cain didn't know how to kill anybody, so he kept on stabbing him in many different places. So that's the bloods, because he stabbed him so many different places. But then Rashi says another pshat. He says, Dom, domai v'dam zaroisav. His blood and the blood of all his children that would have come out of Hevel. Imagine how many children would have come out of Hevel until this generation today. That's what is happening. And that's how we have to look at it. Oh, I just see my dear friend over there who we went to Poland with. He knows this. So that's what, when we see these 9,500 kids, it's their blood, it's their Yiddishkeit, and it's the blood and their Yiddishkeit of their future children. And that's what we came here for tonight. And I can tell you, I've been to these schools where these boys are sent. And what Rabbi Elon said is so true. They're not looking to send them to Yeshiva Ktanis and Paysach Krohn. They're not ready for that. Stars of Israel, Ezra, Or HaChaim, Rabbi Kishani's place, Sharet Zion. And these kids are so sincere. They're so erlach. They're taught what a Rav is, what Torah is. I mean, just this morning I walked into a grocery store and these kids, they're kissing your hand. Why are they kissing their hand? Because they're learning erlachkeit. They're learning what Yiddishkeit is all about. So I just want to tell you 1 or 2 more things. We're coming now towards the Yontif of Pesach. And Rav Schwab he's so brilliant. Everything that he says is so amazing. And he asks a question. In the Haggadah we say like this. Baruch HaMokoim, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shenos and Turtle Am Yisrael, Baruch Hu. Now every time when we say HaMokoim, Rav Schwab brings out, it's always something sad. For example, HaMokoim Menachem. Chas v'shalom, somebody sitting Shiva, we say that. Hamokim Menachem, right? If somebody lost money, what do we say? Hamokim Gimale Chasreinach. Hashem should fill your loss. Those people that are stuck, when we say Achenu, Hamokim Yirachem Aleim. So Rav Schwab says, what is Hamokim doing at the Seder? This is the happiest night of the year. You're sitting with children and grandchildren and family and friends. It's so beautiful. And it says something brilliant. He says, sometimes a father or a grandfather, a mother or grandmother are sitting at the table and they took a look at that child with the earring. Not the girl, the boy with the earring. And they see so many nebuch of their children that have gone off the derech. And they think to themselves, Rabbi Shalom, how did this happen? We're such a frum family. How did these kids go off the derech? And so therefore, That's the hamokim. That's the sadness by certain Siddurim. But the Baal HaGoda is telling you, hang in there. That's why the Baal HaGoda says Baruch 4 times. Baruch hamokim, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shenosan Torah L'Am Yisrael, Baruch Hu. Every child is a blessing. Don't give up. Even though it might be hamokim, you might see that child, that your heart is breaking. How could she have gone off? Where has she been this past year? All those terrible places that you can't even mention in public. And the same thing for the son. And then the Baal HaGoda is reassuring you, hang in there. Try to save these children because you never know. You never know. And that's what Chazaq is all about. I think one of the most important things that we have to know tonight, you see Chazaq advertised all over the place, but it's always about speeches. Charlie speaks, Rabbi Rubenstein speaks, I speak, Rabbi Walker's brother speaks, everybody's speaking for Chazaq. So the Welt understands that it's an educational organization, but really, as he mentioned, I've been to the place you can't imagine. They're working day and night, the people in the office, as he said, trying to get kids to come back to yeshiva, to come back to Yiddishkeit. And I'll just tell you this beautiful, beautiful story. You could all tell it over at the Seder. The Blucher Rebbe was in one of the concentration camps. I think it was in Bergen-Belsen. And it was right before Yontif. And what happened was, they were trying to get some flour to be able to make some matzahs. And they were able to get some flour, and they were able to make a few matzahs. And the shaila was, who do you give the matzahs to? So it started a whole machlekes. Some people said, should give it to the adults. Because after all, they have a chiyuv of matzah, and in the concentration camp, at least they can do this mitzvah. And people were arguing back and forth. And then there was one woman who came over to the Rebbe, because the Rebbe had felt that the adults should get it, because they were able at least to be mekayim the mitzvah. And a woman came over. She had already lost her husband. She was watching a nephew and a niece. And she said, Rebbe, please, just listen to me. Just listen to what I want to say. Rebbe, I'm telling you, in my humble opinion, that you should give the matzah to the children. You see, the parents, nobody knows who's going to survive. But if the parents and the adults survive, they will know from previous years what matzah was all about. But these children, they're so young. They don't even know, they don't remember the previous Ador. They don't know what matzah is all about. Let's give it to them. Let them know, if they are the ones to survive, what it was to have Mesiras Nefesh to be able to eat matzah in such a place. And you know something? The Rebbe said to her, you are so right. And they gave it to the children, and after the war he married her. That was his second wife. I spoke to her children. That was the Rebbe. He said, this is a woman who understands what chinuch is all about. This is a woman who understands what children are all about. And tonight, when we come to save the children, we have to know that's the future of Klal Yisrael. The future of Klal Yisrael is trying to do whatever you can to inspire people. And if we can't do it personally, we have the greatest representatives, in Chazaq. I just want to end just with this thing. Something that's very dear to me. I'm sure that you'll all smile when I tell it to you. But it's something that is very special to me. And that's the meaning of the word Paysach. Now, nobody's named Shavuos, and nobody's named Purim, and nobody's named Sukkot. There's Yontif, and some Sephardi guys are named Hanukkah, right? Right? Some, not too many. Why is it, where did the name Paysach come from? Why did people name people Paysach, right? So people think that I was born on Paysach, but of course not. I'm named after my grandfather, my mother's father. But you know what most people don't realize? I mean, when I used to play ball in Kew Gardens with all the goyim, so they called me Passover, right? Because they couldn't say Paysach, they can't pronounce the CH, right? So they called me Passover, right? Now, but let me just tell you something, what the real meaning of Paysach is all about. And you'll see something you won't believe it. Take a look at the Targum and Rashi. V'ovar Hashem lingoy fes Mitzrayim. Hashem passed by to plague Mitzrayim. V'ros Adom, and he saw the blood ala mashkayif on the lintel v'ashnei hamezuzos. Uposach Hashem ala Pesach. You know what Rashi says? You know what Pesach means? Choma. He had Rachmanis. Pesach means to have compassion. Pesach means to care. That's what the Targum says. Vayichas. It comes from the Lashon of Chas. That's why I think that the name Pesach is around, because it has a beautiful meaning. It means to care and to have compassion. And that's what Pesach is all about. When we come to this Yontif, Baruch Hashem, all of us have wonderful families. But we have to know that to reach out to the single mothers, to the single fathers. You know how many fathers tell me, there are a lot of organizations from divorce, you and I, we speak there, and, sister to sister. There are very few organizations for single fathers. And they're lonely as well. And that's what Paysach is, to go out and to invite these people. And I'll tell you, to me, it's absolutely incredible. The first halacha in Hilchos Paysach, the first halacha is Shoylen b'Hilchos HaPaysach, o minig litnois chitim l'chalkom laniyim, l'tzerach Paysach. The Rachmanis, that's what Paysach is, to care about others. And that's what we come here tonight, to care not only physically about others, to remind ourselves, and I'll end with a great story, but to care for the spirituality of these children. Because if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And I'll just end with this story. What does it mean to have Rachmanis before Yontif? I know the person to whom this happened to. Rav Shlomo Zalman called him. This fellow was a nephew of Rav Shlomo Zalman. Rav Shlomo Zalman called him a week before Pesach. He said, Erev Pesach, I want you to come to me after Bia Chametz. He says, what do you mean after Bia Chametz? It's so busy. Uncle, however he called his uncle. He said, can we take care of something before? He said, no, only after Bia Chametz. I want you to come to my house. And don't forget, they have only one day Yontif. So everybody's busy. It's not like us, we have 2 days Yontif. He comes there after Bia Chametz, and Rav Shlomo Zalman has envelopes on the table. And he says, what is this? Now this fellow was a big Oscan. He gave out a tremendous amount of money to the Aniyim in Yerushalayim. And he takes a look at the envelopes, and he recognizes some of these names. He said, Uncle, these are people, some of these people I gave money to, they have money. Nobody's buying matzahs and wine Erev Pesach. He says, do me a favor, just deliver these 10 and then you can go home. Okay, so he starts delivering them and he's running from place to place. But by the 5th or 6th, he decided he was almost finished. He's going to wait a moment to see how the guy opens it, see exactly how much money is in there. And he opens it and they were shocked because in there were tickets to the Gan HaChayot, to the Biblical Zoo in Yerushalayim. And the guy couldn't believe it. And there was some cash as well. And then when he went to the next house, the 7th and the 8th, of course he waited, and that's what it was all about. He couldn't believe it. That tickets? Who's going to the Gan HaChayot Erev Yontif? What was the necessity of doing this? Of course, he couldn't go back to Rav Shlomo Zalman. He was busy. So Cholomai, he goes back to his uncle. He says, you got to explain this to me. What was the point of giving this Erev Yontif? And Rav Shlomo Zalman said, I know the kids in Yerushalayim. I know what they are. Yontif, they'll be speaking in the middle of davening, they'll speaking to each other. And somebody's going to ask, what are you doing Chol HaMoed? Where are you going Chol HaMoed? And a lot of kids will be able to say they're going on trips, because they know where they're going. But these poor kids, they'll have nothing to say. Not only will it ruin their Yontif, they're going to ruin their parents' Yontif. Because the kids are going to go home and complain on Yontif, how come we don't have any place to go? So I wanted these poor families, that they should have tickets. They should know that they also have a place where to go. That's what Chas is all about. That's what Pesach is all about. Tonight we should give money to Chazaq as we never gave before, because we're not only saving this generation, we're saving future generations. And we thank Rabbi Ilan and we thank Rabbi Yaniv for the wonderful work that they're doing for Klal Yisrael. Hashem should bench them and their families and everybody who participates in this wonderful organization.